Hey YouTube, it's me, Briana. I'm the author of the young adult horror novel Blood and Water, the young adult urban fantasy novel Reflections, and the one I Play Touch, all of which are available on Amazon and make excellent Christmas presents. After seeing this tag all over YouTube, I was thrilled to be tagged by the amazing V. Renee, who I recently did a collab with, so definitely check that video out if you haven't. I will leave a link to that in the description box. Also, when you're done with this video, make sure you check out her answers to the tag as well. This author origin tag was created by Evie Driver, whose channel I will also link to in the description box. And without further ado, let's get into the questions. First of all, backstory. When and where did you start writing? How old were you? What genres did you start in? I have been writing for almost as long as I can remember. I grew up listening to my grandfather tell stories, so I developed a love for storytelling at a fairly young age. The first time I remember writing a story that actually went anywhere was in my elementary school's Young Authors Contest, where everyone in class would come up with a story and enter it in the little contest, and the teachers would pick the best students in each grade. They would go to a little writing conference where you do a table read and eat snacks, and it was great. And I think my first one was I was 7 or 8 at the time. And it was fantasy, which I am still writing, which I think is kind of funny. Next, Protagonist. What was your first main character like? How have your characters / muses changed since then? I'm pretty sure she was a fairy, and I think her name was Skylar. And Skylar was pretty cool. She could fly, and she was sort of a superhero. She kind of helped people who were in trouble without really advertising that she was a superhero. That being said, she was also a Mary Sue. She was perfect in everything she did, and everybody loved her. Now I try to make my characters a little more down to earth, and I give them weaknesses and flaws that really round them out as people. Next question, superpower. What part of the writing process do you feel is your greatest strength? This one is hard for me because I've been really working on acknowledging my strengths and owning my own confidence. For me, the part of the writing process that I think I'm best at, the writing element I think I'm best at, is pacing. It took me a long time to get pacing right, but I feel like it's something that I actually have down, and that is a huge accomplishment. Next, antagonist. What is the worst writing advice you've received? What was your first confidence-breaking experience like? I'm sure I had my first confidence-breaking incident a lot sooner than this, but what comes to mind is in college, I took a class on creative nonfiction and discovered I am very, very bad at writing creative nonfiction, which is really sad because I like reading it, but turns out I'm just not cut out to write it. As for bad writing advice, I have a whole video on that one, so I'll link that below. Make sure you check it out as well because I've heard some stinkers. Following that, we have KRYPTONITE. What part of the writing process or writing in general do you feel is your weakness? I have a problem with dialogue, but it is getting much better. Once I made the switch from writing what I thought sounded good to read versus writing the way people actually speak, my dialogue got a lot better. This sounds super elementary, but it has taken me a while to learn, and based on some of the books I've read, a lot of other people don't have it down either. Next, training montage. What strengths and weaknesses have changed over the years, and what have you done to strengthen your craft? Kind of already accidentally answered this, in part, the part about my strengths and weaknesses evolving over time. But as far as what I've done to improve my craft, this is super cliche, but it's cliche for a reason. I read all the time. Granted, I don't read as much as I used to, but I try to read at least one book every 2 weeks. As a writer, there is nothing better you can do for your craft than to read a lot. Next, weapon of choice. What programs have you used throughout your writing journey? What is your favorite right now and why? When I started out writing, obviously I started with good old Microsoft Word. Since then, I have done pen and paper, which I can no longer do tragically because I have osteoarthritis and it hurts like a bitch. I also really enjoy the AlphaSmart Neo, which is just a straight up word processor. It does not connect to the internet or have social media or show pictures or anything like that. It is literally just a machine for you to put words into. And the best part is it comes with a little USB cable so you can hook it up to your computer and load it into your document when you're done with a chapter or a scene. Word processor wise, after I used Microsoft Word, I switched over to Scrivener for a bit, but lately I am loving the simplicity and ease of access with Google Drive. Next, trusted sidekick. Every hero has their favorite item / person / object to cuddle or consume while writing. What's yours? For me, I love writing with my cat. She tends to cuddle up with me. She's not a lap cat, but she will sit next to me with her head on my leg a lot of the times, and it is the sweetest thing in the world. I also like to have some kind of hot or cold beverage, although even with the weather being colder, I'm still leaning toward iced coffee and or chilled wine. 0 to hero. When you first began your writing journey, how did you envision it would go? Is where you are now anywhere near where you thought you would be? This is a loaded question if I've ever heard one. I think as writers, we all dream of that pie-in-the-sky six-figure book deal, and of course, I'm still interested in that. But I have come a long way as a writer, and in some ways, I've gained a lot of opportunities I never even envisioned for myself. This time last year, I got to travel to a university and see my play performed. Not once, but twice, and also I got paid to do a talkback. I never thought I would see something I wrote being performed, let alone get paid just to talk about it. I am truly grateful each and every day that I interact with readers, fans, followers, and supporters, because I love being reminded of the imprint I've made on the world. No matter how small it may feel at times, it is true that I have put something out that will last longer than I will. That thought is so humbling and so unbelievable that sometimes it makes me want to cry. Anyway, moving on to Remember My Name. What authors helped you realize your passion and/or interest in writing, and whose authors' styles or genres do you draw inspiration from? A lot of you guys know I'm a little keen on The Great Gatsby. That is the understatement of the century, but we're gonna roll with it. I love Fitzgerald's use of evocative language and poetic imagery throughout the book, and it is something I strive to attain in my own work, especially as I'm working on Girls' School. With that said, I also grew up reading a lot of King, so obviously I draw on Stephen King. I'm loving Gillian Flynn and Leanne Moriarty and all these strong female thriller writers. They're just phenomenal. As I move more into writing urban fantasy and horror exclusively, I love Melissa Marr and Holly Black, and I love Paul Tremblay and what he's doing, and Hilary Monahan. They're all just phenomenal authors, and I would be pumped to even be considered in the same realm as any of them someday. Marvel vs. DC. Comparison is dangerous. How has comparison affected you as an author, for good or for bad? Mostly comparison has just been shitty for me. I've talked about this in detail before as well. I've even made a video about it, about the comparison trap and why it sucks as a writer, and why you should do your best to avoid it because it's only going to make your life miserable. You should never compare your progress to anyone else but you, and you shouldn't compare your writing journey to anyone else's either, because every person is different and every journey is different. The obligatory love interest. Looking back on your earliest projects, what genres have you come to love or hate to write? I used to write a lot more contemporary than I do now, because now contemporary by itself just is not enough for me. I wouldn't say I hate it, but I definitely don't like it. I wouldn't say I hate it, but I definitely don't enjoy it as much as I do, say, urban fantasy or horror. I've also written romance before, which seems laughable now because I don't even know how I'd go about writing a romance anymore. Arch nemesis. What are your most common and frequent excuses for not writing? I like to tell myself that I don't have enough time to write. This is true in part because I work full-time and I have a full-time life. But also there are times I'm doing unimportant shit that I could be spending writing instead. For example, I just downloaded Stardew Valley on iOS and it is amazing and so much fun and super wholesome. I have the hardest time dragging myself out of bed sometimes just to go to work and get paid, but will I drag myself out of bed to feed my cows and water my plants? You bet your ass I will. Anyway, Stardew Valley is great, but it has become a massive time suck. I like to tell myself that I will only run one more day in the game, and the next thing you know it, I've gone through 3 seasons. My trick for this is that I simply don't open my game or let myself play it at all until I'm done with my writing or whatever else I have to do for the day. I've always been an all or nothing person, so this kind of all or nothing approach to distractions really helps me. Instead of giving in a little, I don't give in at all until it's time that I can goof off. Rather than saying I'm only going to play for 5 minutes when I know for a fact I'm going to break that, I just don't play at all until I have all the time in the world to goof off. I realize this video has become full of me just plugging my other videos, but I also have a video on making writing a priority, which I will link to, you guessed it, in the description box with its brothers and sisters. Superhero name. When you began, did you consider using a pen name? If so, why? If not, why not? Right now though, it doesn't make sense to me to use a pen name. I like being tied to my work, and it's not really something that I think too much about on a daily basis. I guess if I ever wrote anything too salacious or anything I wouldn't necessarily want tied to my real life, I might use a pen name, but right now it's just not something I see in the cards. Last, Avengers Assemble. Tag a few people to do this video on their channel. I'm sure they've already been tagged, but I'm gonna tag them anyway. I tagged the wonderful Emma Fink, the wonderful Megan Tennant, and the wonderful Jenna Moresi to do this tag as well. That's all the time I have for today. If you enjoyed this video, feel free to give it a thumbs up and click that that subscribe button so you never miss an upload. Right now, I upload videos every Friday, but I am thinking of maybe switching to a 2-video-a-week schedule. Let me know what you guys think about that in the comments below. I'm also going to leave all the questions for this tag in the description box with the other links, because I know it can be a pain in the butt to have to search through videos to find the questions for every tag. And if you're not supporting me on Patreon, consider giving $1 or more a month toward helping fund my content, my AuthorTube, my writing, and all that jazz. It really does mean more to me than you can ever imagine. As always, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you all next week. Bye!